Hey guys, welcome back to Ace Recaps. Today I'm going to be explaining a 2022 Malayalam fantasy horror film titled Kumari. The movie begins with an ancient story about a goddess who fell in love with the earth as a planet and married an earthling. Unfortunately, she gave birth to cruel and gruesome-looking kids who did not look like gods or humans. These demigods were known as Chattans. The Chattans were hungry for power over the planet and wreaked havoc on Earth, fighting each other. Unable to witness the destruction of the people she loved, the goddess cursed her children and banished them to the depths of the earth and mountains in the forest. The goddess then returns back to her heavenly abode, abandoning her children on Earth. As nobody prayed for them, they were slowly forgotten over the years. Centuries later, these demigods were once again awakened by evil people to unleash chaos using their sinister powers. The movie then cuts to a few hundred years ago, when landlords were the supreme leaders of the village. We are then introduced to Lord Thupan, who was a narcissist that believed that he was the greatest and was a very cruel man to the slaves that worked on his land. A young boy named Chokan used to often stop by Lord Thupan's home for the food served to the workers working in the field. Chokan was a dear friend of Ilamala Chattan, one of the goddess's children. He used to always offer fresh meat to the demigod and he adored the child for it. Lord Thupan was always angered by people from a lower caste and deemed them to be unworthy to even touch him. Chokan offered the Lord's wife some mangoes he plucked from the forest. Lord Thupan finds out about this and confronts his wife for eating mangoes meant for the tribals and slaves. Angered by this, he decides to take a dip in the Holy Family pond to cleanse himself of the touch of a person he does not consider his equal. Chokan, being a fun-loving kid, also decides to risk it all and swim in the pond. When the Lord sees this, he is enraged and ends up killing the poor kid. When Ilamala Chattan, the demigod, learns that his beloved friend was murdered, he unleashes his terror on the entire village. The villagers start facing drought year after year, ruining their lives and source of livelihood and food. Villagers also started dying due to painful blisters all over their bodies. To Lord Thupan's horror, the curse started affecting his family too, as the blisters appeared on his body. The Lord finally has enough of this and decides to take matters into his own hands. He summons another demigod named Gari Devan using his blood, unaware of the catastrophic consequences. Gari Devan fights off Ilamala Chattan and protects the village thereafter, in return for the sacrifice. Decades later, we are taken to another village where we are introduced to the protagonist of the film, Kumari. She is a fun-loving girl who is adored by everyone in the village. Kumari and her brother are orphans raised by their uncle, who is a landlord of the village. Kumari receives a marriage proposal from one of Lord Thupan's descendants, who is the youngest son of the family named Dhruvan. Her brother is unhappy with the family's decision as Dhruvan is known to be a very peculiar character. Unfortunately, Kumari has no choice but to accept the offer as she comes of age. Dhruvan and Kumari get married and she leaves her village and heads off to her husband's home. On the way there, she is warned by a local, begging her not to step into the cursed land, but she just brushes it off. Once she reaches there, she is welcomed into the home by her new family and we see a creepy-looking woman talking to Ilamala Chattan, the demigod, about their wait finally coming to an end after 12 generations. On her first night at the new home, Dhruvan seems to respect her boundaries and lets her sleep without forcing himself on her. As days go by, Kumari notices Dhruvan's uncle, the landlord, performing various rituals to please the demigod, but she doesn't think much of it. As a curious Kumari goes exploring around her new home, she spots Chokan in the nearby woods. The spirit of the boy tries to lead her into the forest, but she is stopped by her sister-in-law. She explains to Kumari how Lord Thupan killed a little boy in the pond and ever since then, the land has been cursed. Kumari thinks that this story is just an ancient folklore and dismisses it. Back at home, one of the workers seem to be rebelling against the landlord for not keeping up to his promises. When Dhruvan tries to stand up against them, he is humiliated by his uncle. Kumari witnesses this from her room and asks Dhruvan about it that night. He finally opens up to her about his traumatizing past. As a child, he was a very silent boy, but all the villagers, his teachers and family all mistook him for being mentally unstable. One day, a boy started to call him a lunatic in front of the entire village during a ceremony. An enraged Dhruvan hits the boy and unfortunately he passes away. Ever since then he was hated by everyone and was forced to take medicines to calm him down. Kumari was instructed by the landlord's wife to feed him the medicine every night. Kumari sympathizes with her husband and promises to be by his side through thick and thin. The family follows age-old patriarchal belief that men should act like men and follow traditional gender roles from a young age. All powers were given to his elder brother, and he stands next in line to be the landlord of the village. Unfortunately, Dhruvan's brother never had a child, which may cause problems for him in attaining the throne. As months go by, Kumari gets to know her husband on a deeper level and they both make some amazing memories together in the village. One evening, Kumari spots Chokan in the woods again. She follows him once more, but this time she runs into the creepy woman known as Mudhamma. Mudhamma tells her that she is pregnant and Ilamala Chatan will protect her child at any cost. Unable to decipher what Mudhamma meant, Kumari comes back to the village all tired and terrified and is taken back home by her sister-in-law. Their local doctor confirms that she is pregnant, and everyone is happy except for Dhruvan's brother and his wife. Listening to the news, the landlord tells Dhruvan that he is now in line to be the next landlord. Kumari is elated to know her love for Dhruvan is bearing fruit, and they finally start trusting one another. Kumari isn't demanding, but she ensures Dhruvan is always on her side if anything goes wrong. She is proud that she can control his emotions just by spending time with him in and around the village. Kumari is celebrated at home for bringing a new heir into the family. One night, Kumari spots her husband on the floor with his fingers chopped off. Mad with power, he cuts off his own fingers to look like Lord Thupan, the founder of the village. The next day, both the brothers get into an argument and they end up fighting each other. This is when the landlord comes in and announces to the family that Dhruvan is going to be the next landlord of the village. Not having any other option, his elder brother agrees and walks away. Dhruvan then goes and sits on the landlord's chair, to show to the villagers that he's next in line. That night, the elder brother's wife explains to Kumari that she didn't have a child on purpose. To save the village and himself from the wrath of Ilamala Chatan, Lord Thupan had to perform a forbidden ritual to summon Gauri Devan. After offering his blood, he had to sacrifice his firstborn child to the demigod in exchange for his protection. The spell performed back then ends with this generation unless another sacrifice is made. That's why the landlord appointed Dhruvan as the next lord, so he can sacrifice his child and not let the village go into ruins. The both of them have even started practicing the ritual in secret to be ready when the time comes. Listening to this, Kumari is in denial, so they go into the attic where Kumari is shown the body of Lord Thupan. The forbidden ritual comes with a curse. He is breathing only because of the ritual he conducted, because of which he has to remain alive even though death is what he seeks. The next day, the maids find the elder brother's wife floating dead in the well. Dhruvan and the Lord killed her for telling Kumari the secrets of the family. That night, fearing that her child will be murdered, Kumari slowly sneaks out as her husband sleeps. Wanting to end this wretched curse and to save her baby, she sets out into the forest in search of Ilamala Chatan who promised to save her child. Kumari runs into Mudhamma, who guides her through the forest to meet the demigod. There she enters a creepy cave where Ilamala Chatan approaches her. He gives her a little doll which she buries in the backyard. With the help of this relic, the demigod can protect her within the village even though Gauri Devan still looks over the area. Unfortunately, the demigod starts terrorizing the village once again. People in the village start dying, cattle are massacred and the crops stored for the winter are lit on fire. Soon Dhruvan's uncle and brother are killed by a snake while performing a ritual. Dhruvan is rattled by the turn of events, and with him being the sole proprietor of the land and the new landlord, he starts unleashing terror on people he starts suspecting. When interrogating Mudhamma, she reveals that Kumari was behind the release of the demigod. An enraged Dhruvan restricts her from leaving her room as she enters the 7th month of her pregnancy. A few days go by and Kumari's brother comes to visit her. When he finds out what Dhruvan's been up to, he confronts him about it and they both fight each other. Dhruvan seems to be no match for him, but unfortunately he gets a hold of a shovel and ends up murdering Kumari's brother. When she gets the news of her brother's demise, Kumari sobs in pain. That night she decides to put an end to this torment once and for all. She approaches Lord Thuppan in the attic, and he tells her, only their mother, the goddess, can solve this issue. So he convinces her to let the demigods fight each other during the eclipse and let them sort out the matter on their own, as these demigods look for revenge and do not care about protecting their people. Kumari listens to Lord Thuppan and is terrified of what is about to be unleashed, but she wants to do anything to save her child and will not give up. On the day of the eclipse, Kumari gives birth to a boy, and Dhruvan snatches his son from her for the sacrificial ritual. He offers his son to the evil demigod, but just then Ilamala Chatan shows up and the both of them unleash a bloodbath against each other. Both their strength is equally matched and they end up falling into the depths of the earth. An enraged Dhruvan tries to attack his wife, but she ultimately ends up stabbing her once beloved husband. Lord Thuppan's curse is finally lifted and his soul departs to the afterlife. As years pass by, we see that Kumari now leads the village by doing the right thing and not exploiting the poor workers. She treats them with the respect they deserve, just like the goddess intended, and the village is now thriving again as they got rid of the evil family. The movie ends with her toddler son accidentally walking into the forbidden forest as he sees the spirit of Chokan calling out to him. That's all, folks. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Have a great day.